First and foremost, let me say to those who haven't seen much video activity, I'm not really ever gone. I have a blog, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook posting every day. And everything is at Drew Story News. I have Twitter too, but I'm not really on it as hard. But you can always find me on those platforms. Once again, every day. So I'm never really gone. It's just the YouTube thing. I'm still here, just not making videos at the rate that I used to. Because, truth be told, I kinda can't. As other ventures become successful, it gets harder and harder and harder, time-wise, because I'm always recording and working. And then you factor in the problems that they hit us with, and it's just like, to work very hard on a video, only to have it blocked, restricted, or deleted, kinda takes a lot out of you. Then you gotta go back, figure out how to restructure it, and then it becomes like not the same video. At any rate, that being said, I won't put too much truth out there because I want to get a video out. But let's talk about what's going on today. The coronavirus. The media exaggerates quite routinely. And I think most people already know this. Many folks like myself have been trying to point this out for years. And yes, they are at it again. How quickly people forget things is amazing. It wasn't that long ago when the media was trying to create different forms of panic for different things, and it wasn't that long ago that there was this new measles panic. Measles, 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 and then the flu, dangerous new form of the flu. People are dying, and then there was suddenly this push for mandatory vaccination. Then they were trying to write all these new laws, there were memes coming out making fun of anti-vaxxers, so much fighting about vaccines, and then suddenly, it died. No more measles outbreak. The measles just disappeared. Now we can talk about SARS, H1N1, bird flu, Ebola, and there's certain patterns and formulas that are, hate to say, being perfected. Now let's talk about the real truth that you are not going to find in mainstream media. Let's talk about COVID-19. Now, I don't mean to say that there is no virus, because there is. The virus is real. But how it got here is another discussion entirely. But regardless, yes, they are exaggerating and deliberately causing mass hysteria and panic. And the question is why? Now, early on, if you remember, a lot of medical professionals were condemning the media for laying it on so thick and exaggerating and lying. But then the media just kept at it with the sensationalism and the hysteria. They did not relent until eventually everyone just fell in line. Mayors, governors, everyone just went full throttle. There is a specific reason. This was planned long ago. And now, unfortunately, we are living through the early stages of medical martial law. And the world may never be the same again. And of course it's going to be vehemently denied. Don't be ridiculous. And all the mind conditioning about needing to be prepared and active during a very real world pandemic will come into play as reason. But still, the onset of medical martial law nonetheless. One of the main reasons why it's hard to explain what's happening to people is because sometimes the agendas are so complex, meaning there often isn't just one goal or agenda. Sometimes there are many. That's why most people never catch on to what's really going on. It's a web of confusion, and things are deliberately concealed. These things are designed for years, already considering many variables. And there are so many things that this virus and the media sensationalizing of the virus is meant to do. So I'm simply going to tell you some of the goals. Like previously mentioned, this situation was used to impose martial law. And that's why they try to keep us ignorant, and we don't really learn from history and why we don't want this. Ever. The media just keeps you focused on the deaths and, ooh, another new case. And they know how to manipulate the news and the statistics, constantly showing us which celebrities got tested positive. Perhaps no one in your circles, but all these celebrities and politicians and basketball players and public people. Who else died? How many more numbers are there? With the average person not realizing they can manipulate the news and do this with just about anything. They could, for example, As of mid-March 2020, the CDC reports that there are about 8,000 deaths globally and just about 100 deaths nationally. And this is probably what those celebrity doctors were referring to about the media playing it up too much. Because yes, there's a genuine need to be concerned and prepared. But clearly, the statistics were not matching the panic level. And I'm not blowing it all off. The average person doesn't normally follow the statistics of anything. So a lot of people don't know how to put things in a proper perspective. 8,000 deaths around the world, 100 deaths stateside. Nearly 600,000 people die of cancer yearly in the States alone. So how is cancer not a pandemic? In addition to that, what was reported by the Associated Press, based on data from the CDC, 80% of the people who contract the virus recover. So according to the data that we all have access to, something's clearly not adding up or justifying the need for national lockdowns and quarantines. And when you learn not to blindly trust this system and the people who run it, and understand that there's always agendas amiss, you learn to wake up a little. Emergencies and pandemics are perfect opportunities for governments to expand their power in the guise of public safety. So now, because of this pandemic, it is now completely normal for governments around the entire world to even impose curfews on their citizens, with police officers patrolling the streets at night. Violators of curfews will be punished and arrested. Some cities exploiting the pandemic make up rules on the fly. For example, Champaign, Illinois Mayor Deborah Frank Feenan declared coronavirus an emergency, even though her city didn't even have one case. But through declaring the virus an emergency, through ordinances, some political leaders were able to award themselves additional powers, like the ability to ban gun sales or alcohol. Now that's been denied and refuted by Feenan, but the fact remains the point of declaring emergency is to get emergency powers. Being preemptive is a good thing, I guess, but when your city has not one case, it just adds to the sketchiness of all of this. So is any of this necessary? No, absolutely not. But it's all a part of the agenda. So what are the people doing as these strategic chess moves are made against their rights? They're freaking out, running out to the stores and stocking up on toilet paper. All right. People sit back and allow all of this because they're shell-shocked and afraid. What the system is doing is nothing new. A well-known quote from Benjamin Franklin reads, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Wake up. The virus is being exploited. There are even memes going around showing that H1N1 was far worse. But then we didn't take any of these extreme draconian measures. But we are witnessing the robust power of media and the fact that much of it is the controlled and owned propaganda machine of those in power. Others and I have been trying to warn people for years. We are now in the days in which the media has become even more powerful and dangerous than it has ever been. I see it in all the topics I cover. People are programmed more than ever and unable to think clearly. And through nonstop fear-mongering, they've enabled the powers that be to roll out martial law while never ever referring to it as such. They're careful to never tell you that. But that is exactly what is going on now. Sure, certain media outlets are going to tell us, no, there's no martial law and that's ridiculous. And they're just going to double down on the seriousness of the issue and that these things need to be done early to save lives. Because their job is to keep lying and programming you. But look around. It doesn't even matter what country you're in now. This is one world governance. So, due to panic, we have universal martial law. But that's not all we get. This is also where the very powerful pharmaceutical industry, working with governments, will start making their power moves. And so we will continue to hear talk of drugs and vaccines, not necessarily cures, but vaccines, and preventative drugs. The public is being constantly programmed and trained to only address health problems with vaccination. A new vaccine is the only thing that will fix things. Here we see the function of the Hegelian dialectic. Government creates or exploits a problem. The populace reacts to said problem. Government offers solution that sometimes was planned long before the crisis occurred. People don't really know anything about the science of vaccines, and they just sit and wait for instructions from medical professionals and they obey. I'm not going to go into this subject too much because I probably can't. I really want to get this video out to you unrestricted, so let's just move on. So, for who knows how long indefinitely now, we'll see these travel restrictions internationally. We may eventually see some forced vaccinations and mandatory medical procedures. Schools and businesses can now claim public safety and make you do things, even if the data doesn't support what they may try to make you do. Now things don't really have to make sense or be supported by data. If the CDC or big pharma shills recommend us do something, then they enforce it. Then they're going to make you do it. During pandemics like this, they're getting you used to things because as you come and go, it may no longer be strange or unusual for military, law enforcement, or medical personnel to touch you or suggest you do things for some sort of public health thing, because all of this is in the guise of public safety. They can even start suggesting you ingest things when you don't even know what it is. There may be mandatory screenings or forced on-the-spot instructions upon entering or leaving facilities, or forced mandatory instructions to people who test positive or people who are deemed high risk. That's medical martial law. We're giving them this power. If doctor says this and that, they can take you and quarantine you. Mind you, all of this will be based on the authority of the medical industry. We just have to trust them and what they say as they make us do these things. We're going to see many rights obliterated in the name of public health. And most people will fall in line and obey because fear cripples the mind of the public. We live in a very sick world because it's secretly run by criminally insane, satanic psychopaths. I'm not trying to be dramatic here. I'm just telling you the unsettling truth. People can see the normalized, institutionalized racism, the protected unfairness and corruption. But this is the system working as it was designed. And people who don't understand this blindly trust the system. Anytime you find yourself saying, oh, they'd never do that, stop yourself. Yes, they would. And they do all the time. We have to deal with public ignorance. You have to have a healthy distrust of the system because that's your only protection. And you have to hold the people in power to standards and watch them. Because when you don't, and most of society is just fast asleep, things get rolled over on us. Normies just sit back and trust and believe what they see on TV or what they hear from authorities. The minds of many people are completely institutionalized, so they trust the system and never suspect anything. But some people know better than that. There's an unseen power structure that we are kept oblivious to. Let me take you down memory lane for a little more history that they don't really teach or talk about. And let's talk about Operation Lack. You can go ahead and look it up for yourself. I research all the time, I don't lie. Much of the information is based on the research of sociologist Lisa Martino Taylor. Operation Lack is also a confirmed fact. It's only the reason why they did this that varies, depending on who you hear the information from. In the 1950s and 60s, the US military was secretly spraying toxic chemicals on its own citizens, primarily on the city of St. Louis and other places. And they were testing out biochemical warfare and secretly monitoring the results. They were spraying it from airplanes and putting spray devices on buildings. Local politicians were not notified, and there are experts who feel they lied about the reason why they were doing this when people started to notice, when they had to explain it. They told the people they were testing smoke screens to prevent Russian attacks. That reason is doubted by quite a few people. For example, Doris Spates of St. Louis, who was a baby around the time of the spraying, had her father die unexplainably. She also watched her 4 siblings die of cancer, and she herself survived cervical cancer. So whatever we believe the reason was for the spraying, at any rate, they were deliberately poisoning people, like lab rats. The substance was zinc cadmium sulfide, and it was also mixed with radioactive particles, and it was sprayed mostly on black towns, but many other places as well. Now, like I said, there are conflicting reports about the validity of this, but it doesn't change the facts. The army was in fact secretly spraying chemicals on people, and yes, the chemicals were toxic. Now, again, the system tries to create defenses for these things, and you can postulate why they were doing that on your own. Even if they were spraying multivitamins, think about the mindset of the people in charge who approved this. The soulless psychopaths. And if you think, oh, well, that's just one thing, and it was a long time ago, no, they did lots of things throughout history to present day. Another example, they sterilized Native American communities with vaccines. Look that up as well. In 1976, the government admitted to unauthorized sterilization of Native American women. That also wasn't that long ago. Also, the Tuskegee experiments weren't that long ago either, and they did it a long time. Those very psychotic experiments lasted from 1932 to 1972. And it only stopped because it was exposed. But people will still keep trusting the system. So today, many politicians and some celebrities with platforms are puppets for this system. Unfortunately, we can't trust some of them, and they don't work for you. They fulfill agendas. Many will feign to be warriors for the right things to do. Then they'll recommend this and recommend that, and it's basically what the government wants. So for the time being, as we go through this, most won't complain and say, hey, this is a little much. No, all the talking heads will keep you from resisting. Just stay home, self-quarantine. Don't resist, obey. And they'll repeat whatever comes from above. Is all of this necessary? No, it's not. This is a test run. It's psychological warfare. It's social conditioning. It's an agenda for fear. And what this can eventually lead to is a recession and then a mass depression. If people can't go to work, meet with friends, go to a bar, sports game, concert, then they'll get bored and they just have to stay home and do what? Watch television all day long. Here's another thing that people were discussing. Was the coronavirus predicted? Well, in truth, there are few coincidences. And unbeknownst to most huge events that impact society are planned events. No one's going to tell you that. Many people did actually try to tell us that. Not many people listened. And because the powers that be think we're stupid, sometimes they even throw it in our faces. What's also very interesting was that there was a mass exodus of CEOs from some of the country's largest companies. Simultaneously, many senators sold their stocks, all right before the coronavirus came crashing in the headlines. Just food for thought. Anyway, so I covered this in my blog, and most people heard about this by now, about these coincidental coronavirus predictions. A pneumonia-like virus from Wuhan, China, was predicted in a book written in 1981 by Dean Koontz, The Eyes of Darkness. It should be noted that that book was edited many times, but the last time in 2008. Still way before anything going on now. It was also in a book written by the deceased celebrity psychic Sylvia Browne, though she probably just ripped the information from somewhere else, like usual. But the point is, it was out there. In 1993, there was a Simpsons episode featuring a virus coming from an Asian country. The Simpsons always seem to be on point when it comes to a lot of things. Coincidence? You make that call for yourself. And now here we are. Because of all the television programming, the media programmed are on the loose once again. The toilet paper people were out in droves, panic shopping. They're spraying their kids in the face with Lysol. Crowds are threatening medieval mob justice to random people who happen to cough or sneeze. They're out frantically stockpiling toilet paper, Cheese Whiz, and Hot Pockets. Here's the truth. It is not a bad idea to have some food and supplies stocked at home during this time, maybe a couple of weeks worth, because statistically, it isn't necessarily the virus you need to worry about. We need to be very concerned about what our cities and states are doing in response to the virus. And as they overreact and close all these facilities to feed the public hysteria, we may very well need some food and supplies at home. So that is not wrong. But do not live your life in fear. That is the agenda. That is what they want. The fear is being manufactured. The media was and is relentless with this virus. It's on all day, every day, and they're smothering this thing. And scared, programmed people are now policing each other now, yelling at each other to stay home. Take this seriously. Stay away. Self-isolate. And you can't really blame people because they feel they're being smart and careful. They trust the information that they're told. However, this is over their heads and they don't understand agendas and media's role in it. It's really hard for people to swallow the truth. And it's difficult for people because people don't know where that line is, where the need for concern is justified and where they're just really just laying it on thick. Anyone who dies from the virus, they throw it on the news. Even if the people had lots of pre-existing conditions, they'll still tell you, hey, it's the coronavirus. They keep on coming at us, telling us which celebrity tested positive. Every day, another one. Oh no. They keep telling us the numbers are rising in other countries and that against all our efforts, the virus is spreading. They keep making projections that this could go on well past the summer. This is psychological warfare. They're causing mass hysteria on a global level. And people have warned, as society keeps getting dumbed down more and more, they are getting better at what they do. So all of this is not just informing us how to protect ourselves. It's meant to instill fear. Because this fear lays the foundation for creating order out of chaos. And the people will fall in line and obey. Human behavior is studied covertly by the people in control. And they know very well that in the end, people will choose safety over their own freedom. Here's what you should know. Among many things, because it's never just one thing, there are agendas within agendas. That's why it's difficult for a lot of people to know what's going on. But there are many things planned to work in concert with other things, and they're very strategically designed. One of those agendas, they're paving the way for the vaccine. And people will probably line up to get it immediately. But they already anticipate resistance from a knowledgeable, holistic crew. Add to that number religious groups, the already vaccine injured, and the anti-vaxxers, and regular folks who just have a distrust of Big Pharma and just would rather not get vaccinated. They know all these groups exist and will make a little noise. And that is why, through all this sensationalism, they're already laying the groundwork for them to be mandatory. In other words, you don't get a say. We own you. We will enforce whatever is decreed by the CDC. And it's medical martial law time. That's why we're going to live through this manufactured hell on earth until it gets here. Now everyone needs government for safety, order, and survival. We have this dangerous airborne virus, and we have to contain this and keep everybody in lockdown. We have to enforce curfews and all that. And if you want to come out and maybe travel, well, we might need to see some paperwork that you got your vaccinations. These are the possible scenarios to come. If you're a good little sheep and you take your meds, you can get a cookie and go on to work or school. But if you opt out, you may face anger, rebuke, and jeers from friends, family, and neighbors, pretty much everyone around you, and maybe even face punitive action, isolation, or even jail. Just letting you know and understand what could be coming down the pike. In this matrix that we live in, fear is often used to control us. They do it all the time. With the war on terror everything. And we've already shown them that they control the minds of a lot of us. With the threat of this virus, we gave up our rights very easily. We're scolding each other to follow all the new rules. Stay inside! Insanity. Now, let's just get to the brighter side of things, because there is a brighter side and a silver lining to all of this. We are at the brink of a paradigm shift. Our world is changing, and they know it. Yes, it's true. Lots of people, most people, are fast asleep, and they're stuck in the matrix. But people are waking up. The same tricks are not going to work anymore, and they know that too. They are absolutely terrified of that. They do not want an intelligent, awake society that sees through all the garbage and nonsense that they're doing now, because then they would have completely lost control. But right before this eventual shift in consciousness takes place, for the time being, things are peaking and getting worse, and evil is on parade. You can see it everywhere in our society that things are not okay, and evil is at a high point. We have so much low vibrational energy, evil, and debauchery pumped out in our movies, TV shows, and music, just reaching a peak. Sure, it was always there, but take a look at how far things have come from, let's say, the 1950s to now. They're mainstreaming sexual confusion. The times are crazy. Things are peaking and coming to a cultural revolution. It's good to know and never forget that there are people out there who are meant to bring healing into this broken world. This is a spiritual war. It's just the masses trapped in a low vibrational state that don't really realize this. That's why the system wants us low vibrational and dead. They just want us going to work and shopping. That's why they want our kids drugged up, socially engineered, and confused. They want to stop a paradigm shift and mass awakening. To really understand the times now, know and understand that they're toying around with you, trying to condition you, distract you, and produce fear. Yes, be careful. In fact, a lot of the things that people are doing now, I've already done just because that's just how I am. I already self-isolate. I walk with hand sanitizer, mainly work from home, stock up on supplies, mainly because I don't feel like being out there that much. So yes, it's good to do some of these things that they're encouraging us to do right now. But don't give your energy over to fear. It will knock you off your square. Rather use the time to focus your energy, make positive health changes, spend time with people in your life that you love. Instead of watching television and listening to all the fictional BS and fear-mongering, it's great to do something constructive, maybe work on yourself. Instead of parents complaining about their kids being home, realize you are living an artificial life anyway. The system had those kids while people were busy with their artificial lives at work. What were they learning? What do they even eat when at school? Take this time not to just sit home afraid, but to turn all of this back on them. It's not about helping us or keeping us safe. It's about fulfilling the agenda. We need to understand and not forget that evil people run this world. But there's more of us than them. That's why every day we're being dumbed down and programmed, because that's how they control us. Instead of being afraid of everyone around us, we need to refocus that energy and know who the real threat and enemy is. Understand that they now have us quarantining ourselves away from the very people we eventually need to be locking arms with. We vote for liars, deceivers, and opportunists that pretend to work for our interests, but they are elected and positioned in a controlled system to act on our behalf because we volunteer our power to them. But the system controls them in the end. And so we don't really get real leadership or the truth. And they're all standing firm in unison, suggesting and implying that we need martial law. That's why I never get too political. This is an artificial matrix, and we volunteer our power, but we are the power. They don't want you to know that. Don't give in to the agenda of fear. Be cautious and careful as you normally would, but do not be afraid. Be ready, be strong, be positive, be united. Reject their programming, and this soon will pass.